Hello, everyone, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the new TCN Rundown. On this episode, I'm going to be talking about the evolution of Tron, from Tron Ascension to Tron Ares. What eventually happened as a sequel to Tron Legacy has now become sort of a pseudo-sequel in a standalone film. So without further ado, let's start talking Tron. The Tron universe has captivated audience with its groundbreaking visuals and exploration of the digital realm. After years of release, Tron Legacy in 2010, fans have now eagerly awaited the next chapter, which was, for the longest time, going to be called Tron Ascension. But over the last 15 years, that project eventually transformed into Tron Ares. Now, what most don't realize was that there was actually some planned groundwork that Disney had actually laid for Tron Ascension in the Blu-ray home release of Tron Legacy. First being a 10-minute short film called The Next Day. And this actually featured multiple cameos and this actually featured multiple cameos of characters such as Roy Kleinberg, who actually was the character Ram from the last movie. And it was actually revealed that he and Alan Bradley, aka Tron, but his real-life counterpart, were actually responsible for running the Flynn Lives campaign. And this actually explained that now there were certain aspects that Disney had actually prepared to allow a third Tron film to be in play. And these were all special features on the home release of Tron Legacy. And of these features, there was a 10-minute epilogue called Tron the Next Day, which kind of filled in some gaps and explained that the Flynn Lives campaign was actually an internal project between character Roy Kleinberg, who aka was known as Ram in the last film, and then Alan Bradley, aka Tron. And these two were actually behind the Flynn Lives campaign and the kind of groundwork movement that allowed people to accept Flynn coming into power. Another scene that was actually done was a Easter egg scene that was in the Blu-ray. And this scene was actually pretty important because this was actually what was laying most of the groundwork. And this was actually a chat program. And with this chat, you had Edward Dillinger Jr. chatting on the NCOM ILC server with a second ambiguous character known as MCTRL 751, which a lot of people assumed was his father, Edward Dillinger Sr. However, the actual MCP was one of these chatted characters. And the MCP said he is still a Flynn, and then it ended with the communication of end of line as the known MCP trademark. And this was actually help setting up the idea that the MCP and the Dillingers were going to be setting the stage for Tron Ascension. Unfortunately, these plans didn't happen, and now people are wondering if Tron 3, aka Tron Ares, is going to pick up any of those pieces with Sam, Cora, Dillinger Jr., because we know that there's another Dillinger in the mix now, but we know that the idea of the invasion, which was something that was kind of picked up on, is now happening, whether or not these people are involved or not. So to go back and explain what had happened, we have to cycle back to 2015, about 5 years after Tron Legacy. In 2015, Disney had actually gone out and greenlit Tron Ascension, which was being hailed as a direct sequel to Tron Legacy. This project was also going to be directed by Joseph Kosinski, the director of the Tron Legacy, and the film aimed itself to bring the characters of Sam and Cora back into the real world and exploring the narrative where the digital grid had eventually invaded reality, which at the time was being described as a invasion movie. However, the project was abruptly canceled in 2015, and reports had actually suggested that it was because the underperformance of Tomorrowland, Disney had decided to halt production entirely. So despite this setback, the vision of Tron Ascension was such a good vision that people behind the scenes, they still wanted to make it happen, and they fought for a while to make this a reality. So now, Tron Ares. So after the cancellation of Tron Ascension, the franchise eventually had found new life with Tron Ares. So in 2017, just 2 years after Tron Ascension was canceled, it was announced that Jared Leto was being attached to the new Tron film and was going to be starring as the title role of Ares, a sophisticated program originating from the grid. But the film itself faced more delays and eventually resumed in 2024. So now we have Tron Ares set to release later this year on October 10th, 2025, which is promising a fresh take on the digital frontier, as well as kind of a continuation tissue of the previous. So what is Tron Ares? So Tron Ares, Jared Leto portrays the character Ares. He is a program that is sent from the digital world into the real one, which is challenging the boundaries between humanity and artificial intelligence. The film itself is actually featuring a stellar cast, including Evan Peters, who's actually going to be playing Julian Dillinger, which was presumably the younger brother of Edward Dillinger Jr., played by Cillian Murphy in the last film. Greta Lee is also playing a Detective Ava Kim, and Jeff Bridges is somehow reprising his role as Kevin Flynn. The narrative delves into the themes of identity, technology, and the evolving relationship between humans and AI. But what are the other changes that this movie has gone through? Though staying true to the franchise's legacy, Tron Ares is boasting some cutting-edge visuals and a dynamic soundtrack. Unfortunately, Daft Punk had since broke up since their groundbreaking soundtrack in 2010 with Tron Legacy, so now a score is being provided by Nine Inch Nails, which is adding a modern edge to an iconic neolit aesthetic. So they're kind of blending this techno sound to it that we knew from the Tron Legacy soundtrack from Daft Punk, but they're also adding that little Nine Inch Nails vibe to it. So it's going to be something a little more hardcore than what we're expecting. This combination of visuals and innovation and musical prowess is aimed to immerse audiences in a reimagined digital universe. So now we have Tron Ares coming out at the end of this year. It is essentially a reimagining and a retooling and everything and above of what a Tron Ascension could have been and what fans had hoped Tron Legacy would continue. Whether or not it is confirmed that any of the aspects of Tron Legacy's ending, including Cora, Sam, even Tron himself, none of these things have actually been confirmed as returning. What we know is there was a Dillinger involved, we have a new program named Ares, and the invasion that was promised with the concept of Tron Ascension is now in full force. So are you going to be seeing this film? Are you excited? Did this help at all? Hope so. Thank you again for joining me on TCN Rundown. We'll see you next time.